Hello and welcome to today's video. Today I'm looking at 4 inks. These are by the brand Van Dieman's ink and are in collaboration with and exclusive to Pulp Addiction, the retailer here in Australia. This is the packaging. There are 4 of them. I'm just going to show 2 of them here. I'm going to look at all 4 inks. One thing I will say straight up is that I really like the fact that when Van Dieman inks do exclusive with retailers, they not only create unique colors for them and labels for the bottles, but also even down to like the boxes. I really like that. I think it's a really neat touch. So these are the standard, I think they're 30ml bottles of these inks, and made in Tasmania in Australia, just like me, made in Tasmania, and made, as I said, made for the Victorian-based retailer Pulp Addiction. So there are 4 colors I'm going to show you here today. There's Allspace, which is a lovely sort of dark honey brown. Blue Crystal, a lovely warm sort of light blue turquoise color. Frosted Rose, which is I suppose a pinky light purple with this beautiful sort of gold pink, almost like a rose gold shimmer, I want to say. And Emerald, which is a really wonderful sort of quite well saturated green. So I'm going to look at these on a couple of different kinds of paper and show some color comparisons to them, that kind of stuff. And just to give a sense of what these inks are about. So across a couple of pages here, I have the inks on Tomo River paper, and I'm going to just look at each one as we go. Now, I should say, Van Dieman's ink bottles, these bottles, 30ml bottles, are $15.95 Australian. These colours are exclusive to Pulp Addiction, so if you want them, head over to Pulp Addiction and see what you can do there. Van Dieman's inks are generally pretty safe. They use good quality ingredients. They're all handmade in micro batches using non-toxic and environmentally friendly products and pure Tasmanian spring water, which is awesome. So these are fairly sort of, you can be fairly confident using these inks. I personally wouldn't use shimmer inks in vintage pens and pens that are hard to clean. That's just me, but that is totally up to you. Okay, so let's start here with Blue Crystal. So this is a light shading ink. It's got low water resistance, some halo sheen. I'm not sure if it's going to come up on the camera, but occasionally you get little pops of red, particularly with the ink pools in the writing. And it's got a fairly wet flow on it. It's a nice ink. It's a fairly sort of warm pastel blue. In fact, this one and Allspace here, I consider to sort of be more pastel in sort of their color range, as opposed to more vibrant saturated inks like Emerald, which we'll see. It's a nice ink. When you're writing with it, you do need this in a wetter pen, and I'll say that for both of these first 2. Otherwise, the shading is just a little on the light side for some, like, for page contrast, but it's still perfectly legible, and particularly when it's in a wet pen like it is here, it writes very nicely. Allspace here, I've got mid saturation, once again it's in that pastel world, very wet and high shading, and I said best in a wet pen. You can even see like where you get some of the lighter shading, it does tend to get a little on the lighter side. But this is beautiful. This ink color is lovely. It's not really a honey brown. It's kind of like, it's not really brown. It's earthy. It's yeah, I think it's a really, really interesting color, and the shading is beautiful, and particularly where the ink pools and you get like this like ring of darker brown. It's very, very nice indeed. Then we have Emerald. This is a great ink. This has got some really big sheen on it. You can see the red sheen there popping on the page. Emerald, high saturation. This is a wet ink. It's got great color depth, so even in the lighter shading, it's still super vibrant and rich. And out of these 4 inks, this is my personal pick. I didn't think it would be. Like, I thought it would be nice because it's a great color and made by a nice company and all of that. But as soon as I started writing it, I was like, oh yeah, this is great. The saturation level, the flow on the page, all of that, it's beautiful. And as I said, like some great sheen and stuff like that. And then the last one we have here, Van Dieman ink Frosted Rose. This has a gorgeous shimmer. So that rose goldy color is, I think, made up of silver and red sort of shimmer particles. And it's really nice across that sort of mauvey purple base color. So it's got a gorgeous shimmer, which it does. It's a nice shimmer. It's not super present in the writing, but when you put the swatches down, I think you do get a big hit of it. But it's got a great base color. So when you're writing with it, if you don't get too much of that sheen coming through, that shimmer, coming through, it's still really nice. It is a very wet ink, because once again, these inks are, they're impressively they have impressively good flow, and that's one thing Van Dieman's ink is doing some really great things with. And I think it's also got a nice name, that Frosted Rose. It's poetic. It's beautiful, and it instantly, with that color and that shimmer, it conjures up an image for you. So I'm very, very impressed with these inks. So I've got these on a couple of other kinds of paper, so I'm just going to show them very quickly on there, just to give you an idea of the performance and things like that, and then we'll do some color comparisons. So we'll start with them here on 80 GSM Rhodia paper. You can see, as I said, low water resistance there on blue crystal, but the ink looks nice, particularly in the darker shading. It's beautiful and it's warm. It's not sort of super bright, vibrant highlighter blue. It's sort of got a nice depth to it. Allspace, once again, a lot of that comes up, but we are left with enough to be able to really make that out clearly. Beautiful shading in the swatch, beautiful shading in the writing. It looks, on this paper as opposed to the Tullamore River we saw it on, we don't get so much of the very dark shading, so we actually get more of that honey brown kind of color. Emerald, I said this was a highly saturated ink, and that becomes very apparent when you put water on it. Water got on emerald there, and it just spreads. Once that ink rehydrates on the page, it spreads. But isn't that color absolutely stunning? Like, looking at that swatch there with a bit of sheen coming through, it's just beautiful. I'm really impressed with this emerald ink. I think this is really great. And then lastly, Frosted Rose. A little bit more water resistance there, and some nice hits of that shimmer in the writing and on the swatch there. This is a beautiful ink. I like the mauve base color a lot. Personally, I don't use a lot of shimmer inks in my everyday writing, but this is one with that combination and that sort of poetic sense of the ink. It's a lovely combination. And then I've got them here on a couple of lower end papers. This is the student notepad paper from Spyrex. The colors look a lot more washed out, and there's a tiny bit of feathering, but it's not too bad. But they are definitely more washed out. This is super absorbent paper, and so we do get a bit of bleed happening. But this is not fountain pen friendly paper. But if you're using these inks for whatever reason on paper like this is the kind of performance you can expect. And then we get a pretty similar kind of result here on the 80 GSM copy paper from Reflex. We get a bit more of the color depth, which I enjoy. No shading or anything like that. It's certainly a lot lighter, particularly things like the Allspice there. But it holds a bit tighter. It's a slightly better quality paper than the Reflex lecture pad paper. And if we look at the reverse, there's still a bit of bleed happening. But when we look at it on things like the Rhodia here, if I look at the reverse of that page, of course nothing's going to come through except for where I'm putting down a fair amount of ink. But in the writing and stuff, it's all performing really well. Even in the swatches, it's generally pretty well performed. These are good fountain pen inks, and they are designed for fountain pens on fountain pen friendly paper. Okay, so now we do a color comparison. I'm going to do a little color comparison for each. So there we have it on a coloring card once again. Van Dieman's ink and Pulp Addiction Blue Crystal. I've putting alongside Dieman Aqua Lagoon and Robert Oster Torquay. So the Robert Oster being another Australian brand, and I always bring up a Robert Oster ink when I do color comparisons because it's kind of nice to be able to tie it all together. You can see it's a lot warmer. It's a slightly duller, more pastel blue. Definitely not that vibrant blue of something like Aqua Lagoon. And it does have a little bit more in common here with the Torquay and sort of some of that depth of color and that shading. But this is much more sort of much more blended color. And then we have Allspice, and I've got a couple here to show. First is Berlin Notebook Fox number 6 ink, which is an ink I love to look at more. I think it's a really interesting ink. It's got some lovely colors. It's a bit more honey orange than the honey brown of Allspace. SBRE brown, once again, the same kind of thing. That's that Dieman Ackerman ink for SBRE brown. Some similarities, but this is fairly unique to itself. And then the last one I've got here is Robert Oster Kansas City from the US Cities set, which is similar in some of that middle shading. You can sort of see through here. But Allspice is a nice color. I don't have too many inks like this in my collection. Next we have Emerald, and I'll put it alongside my standard green for reviews, which is Mont Blanc Irish Green. I love this green, and you can definitely see similarities there. I think Emerald sheens a little bit more. And then the last one I'm going to put alongside is Robert Oster Emerald. Very similar in the middle shading, Robert Oster going a lot lighter, and Van Dieman's ink, Emerald, going a little bit darker. But it's all in that same sort of color family. It's not a particularly bright green or a fieldy green. It really is sort of like a beautiful, rich, we'll say an emerald green. And then we have Frosted Rose. You can see that shimmer. It looks beautiful. And actually, I'm just going to get the bottle here because I've had this sitting up the right way. So if we turn it upside down, you see all that beautiful shimmer in the bottom. We can see it sort of moving around through the ink there. I do love shimmer inks. They, looking at them in the bottle, I think is actually as satisfying as using them. Yeah, very, very lovely. Okay, so Frosted Rose, let's look at some comparisons to that. Now, I'm putting it alongside a standard violet purple, Simplicity's Violet from Ackerman, just to show that it is much more mauve. It's almost on the pink leaning end of the scale. Another ink I'm putting it alongside here for the base color is Robert Oster Melbourne Rose from the 2022 Melbourne Pen Show. You can see it's not as magenta-y sort of purple. It is perfectly in the middle there, mauve, lilac-y kind of purple. And then a shimmer ink, Robert Oster Violet Clouds, which is more like a grey purple with silver shimmer. So you can see, if I get them up in the right angle together, that the shimmer is this sort of, it almost looks rose gold because of that combination of the shimmering colours. It's really, really interesting. So that was 4 exclusive inks to Pulp Addiction made by Van Dieman's ink. We had Blue Crystal, Allspice, Emerald, and Frosted Rose there. I hope you found this video interesting and useful. Please like and subscribe, hit the notifications button, all of that kind of stuff. If you've got products you'd like me to look at, please get in touch. I'd love to hear from you. A big, big thank you to Pulp Addiction for providing these inks for this video. It's been really interesting looking at them. So go out and check out the Pulp Addiction website. I think they're great. And a Tasmanian made ink company, which I'm a big supporter of. So thank you for watching. Enjoy your inks. And until next time, I'll talk to you later.